Hello folks, I hope you're well. I'm Usman, this is Malazan Books, and I have for you today a review for Deadhouse Gates, Book 2 in Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. Now, to keep things non-spoiler at the beginning here, I gave this book 4 stars, meaning I enjoyed it more or less the same as Gardens of the Moon, but there's definitely a lot more to unpack in this one. So there were a couple of reasons here that made it a little bit harder for me to get through than the previous book. The first thing was we have a character here who goes through some intensely traumatic experiences, and all her scenes will just have you experiencing very extreme emotions. Now, I'll discuss her more at length in the spoiler section, but moving on, the second thing that was hard for me personally to get through was the battles. There were lots of battles in this one, and that whole plot line with all the wide array of like political and military factions, it was just hard to visualize for me. It reminded me again very much of The Black Company, where we have a very realistic portrayal of events here, and the action is almost palpable with its realism and intensity, which is all incredible stuff, but without the resources online that were available to help me out, things would have been really confusing for me. Now that said, an important thing I need to touch on here is the resources available. The amount of resources available online pertaining to this series, whether it's videos, blogs, summaries, whatever, it's just incredible, and it's incredibly useful, and I think everyone needs to take advantage of it. You know, for any convolution that you may have, there is a resource available online for things to become much clearer for you. But anyways, those were just a couple issues I had, which in hindsight don't seem all too notable. Whatever. Now, as we move on, we do get major revelations and new pieces of information, both for the characters in the present and in the grand scheme of things, and they will shock you. Just when you think you have a grasp on things, another mind-blowing morsel of information is just casually dropped in front of you, and you will proceed to dwell on exactly how rich this world is, and just how Erikson was able to create this eternal abyss of wonder that is Malazan. So despite the somewhat jarring start, I think Deadhouse Gates is a marvelous exploration into some incredibly powerful themes such as survival, true friendship, found family, and of course persevering through the worst of circumstances. And I've only read 2 out of 10 books, but somehow I am already eager to reread this series. Now, however, I do want to get more into the spoiler section and talk more in depth with these characters and events. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers, I do thank you for sticking around up to this point. But now the spoilers will begin. So we come to it. Felison. Yes, Felison is irritating. Yes, she is hypocritical and just overall incredibly insufferable. But the way I would describe Felison is she is a living tragedy. To see a young girl put through this vicious cycle of abuse that in many cases was her own choice is absolutely gut-wrenching. And then to find out that it could have all been avoided if she hadn't given into her situation as quick as she did. Erikson has created in Felison a very realistic portrayal of the effects of trauma and how trauma affects people differently. I mean, how many times have we read about a character, choosing the right path and always being saved from a grim situation? So here it's absolutely understandable that she would harbor all this anger and lash out and spew all this hatred to anyone and everyone. I love how Erikson is consistent in portraying how Felison has just cultivated this personality that just crumbles under pressure. I mean, we see that time and again as she just constantly gives up or gives in to her situation. And of course she has no one to blame but herself, so of course she's going to lash out at the world in her misery. Now the other plot line I need to touch on is Coltane and Duiker. I mean, by the end of that story, by the time they got to Aran, I was just praying that that arrow did not miss Coltane. I love how I barely know the guy, and yet he holds my respect just as much as all his people do. And I feel like we haven't seen the last of him thanks to that epilogue, and of Duiker for that matter. The other storyline that had a lasting impression on me was definitely Mappo and Ikariam. I mean, I'll admit it took a while to get into that storyline, but by the end, I almost shed a tear at the love and the care that Mappo showed for his friend Ikariam. I'm so eager to see where their plotline goes, especially knowing the secrets that Mappo harbors from Ikariam, and especially the secrets from outside forces that these two don't even know about. So that's going to be really interesting. But that's honestly all I want to share here for this review. Now I do have a live discussion coming up with a bunch of cool people where I'll go even more in depth with these characters and this story. So I'll save that for that time, and I'll keep you updated as to when that will be. But that's it for this. Thank you so much for tuning into this, everybody. If you like the video, you can like it and subscribe to the channel. I'm excited very much to get to book 3 and to just continue chatting about Malazan. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next time.